Today I want to explain to you how I created this beautiful quilt that you see behind me. Hi, I'm Kim from Chatterbox Quilts, and I created this quilt, which I call Far Out, for the Island Batik Log Cabin blog hop that happened in February 2024. Now first I want to thank Island Batik and their sponsors for sending me this beautiful fabric to work with. And this is a collection called Woodstock. It's designed by Kathy Engel for Canton Village Quilt Works. So I loved working with all these fun, vibrant fabrics. And if you can't really tell, you'll see a close-up of the fabrics in a few moments, but if you can't really tell, Woodstock is sort of a 60s themed collection. So there's lots of peace signs and other things that relate to the 60s in it. So, excuse me, kind of a groovy collection. So it was really fun to work with. So I want to explain a few things about this quilt. So the challenge for that blog hop was to create a quilt using log cabin blocks. And I've never made a log cabin quilt before, so I was really excited about this opportunity. And I want to do something a little bit non-traditional, especially with the Woodstock fabrics I was using. So I created this pattern, which has kind of two distinct areas that you'll see here. This one looks like a diamond, and the one here is more of a circular effect. Now, how I created these is what I'm going to explain to you, and really the magic is in how I created the log cabin block. And I just want to point out that it takes 4 of these blocks to make one of these big designs. So I'm going to take the quilt down so I can give you a closer look at the block and explain how that block is created and how I got it to create these different designs you see behind me. I've taken the quilt down because I want to show you close up how these blocks were created. I want to explain what I did to get that either diamond or circular shape, because it's in how you make the log cabin block. So I'm taking a look at the block. Now these blocks are 14 inches finished, so 14.5 inches unfinished, so they're good sized blocks, but there's lots of fabric going on in here, so that's why you don't really think they're as big as they are. But let's take a look and see what is an actual block. So block is this. So from the blue here over to the green, and the green at the top to the blue at the bottom. This is one block, all right? And as I mentioned before, it takes 4 of them to give you that diamond or that circular effect, and it's all in how you put the blocks together, how you turn them, okay? So it's not difficult. But what I did is I had to make all these blocks are all made the same way, the fabrics are all in the same places, but the fabrics are not all the same width. So a couple things to think about when making this kind of a block, and often when you're making a log cabin block, things to keep in mind. So in this block, I needed to have one side that was in contrast to the fabrics on the other side, all right? So that could either be, a lot of times you'll see, black or dark fabrics on one side and lighter fabrics on the other side. In this case, with the fabrics I had in the Woodstock collection, I noticed that there was reds and kind of red greens mixed together, and then there were other ones that were definitely on the blue side, a little bit of aqua there and then blues. So what I did is half of my block, I used the blues in, so you can see here. And the other half is where I used the greens or red and green together fabrics. And it worked out really well. I wasn't sure if it would or not, if there'd be enough contrast, but there definitely was. So my contrast was in the color rather than the lightness or darkness of the fabrics. These all read pretty much mediums to me. All right, so that's one thing. I needed to make sure that one side was a contrast to the other side. Check, got that done. The other thing I did was that I mentioned the widths weren't the same. So on the blue side, these fabrics here, the blue strips were 1 inch finished, so 1.5 inch cut. The red, green, and green fabrics were all 2 inch finished or 2.5 inches cut. So you have wider strips on this side of the quilt and thinner strips on the other side. And that's what ends up giving you the ability to put these together to create either that diamond kind of shape or the circular shape. Okay, if they'd all been the same width, I wouldn't have got that look at all. So I call this a wonky log cabin. I think it goes well with the Woodstock collection, and hence why I called this Far Out too, because that reminds me of the groovy 60s as well. So let's take a closer look at some of these fabrics in here. So there's a lot of pattern in them. Some of them are more tone on tone. You can see with the red here and the peace signs here and the hearts, which I also used in the border. And then other ones have a lot more colors going on in them here, as you can see. But a lot of pattern, again, all reminiscent of the groovy 60s, right? So I loved working with these. And as I mentioned before, I used this wavy line to quilt it because you wouldn't have seen elaborate quilting on this quilt. So there's no purpose in doing that. Also, I wanted to make sure that the stars of this quilt were the fabrics and the blocks and not the quilting. So I think that worked out really well. I loved how this came together, and I loved how those diamonds and the circles really shone, really stood out when I put it together. So I was really pleased with how these fabrics all worked together. And at first I wasn't quite sure, I'll be honest, I wasn't sure about this collection, but after working with it and seeing how well it came together, I really liked the fabrics, and they were really fun to work with. I'll just show you as well, because I don't know that you could see it very well in the whole quilt when it was first hung up there, but I used the red for the borders, and then I have this fabric, which I use for the cornerstones because it's got a lot of words going on in it, and a lot of different designs, so I thought it was kind of fun to kind of highlight that fabric instead of cutting it into the strips. So that's Far Out for the Island Batik Log Cabin Block Hop in February 2024. And for more information on this quilt and the collection, you can go to my blog post that I created for it. You'll see that in the description below. Thanks so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. And remember to subscribe and hit the bell so you'll be notified the next time I release a new video. And for more helpful quilting information, be sure to go to my website at chatterboxquilts.com.